Faughn, joined by a freshman senator who has more energy than she has any right to. Maggie Nurnberg, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Yep, always good to be on with you, Scott. And I tell you what, a morning show, I'm ready to go again. We had a late night, ready to go again this morning.
I know. Right after Cinco de Mayo, too, you're too chipper, really. How you liking it, though?
Oh, it's been a blast. It really has. I've really been fortunate to come into the Senate at the time when I came into the Senate.
That's right, yeah.
Right, to have a functioning institution that's really there for the purpose that the Senate was created, right? Our whole purpose is to slow things down, be very deliberative, purposeful in the legislation that we are passing. I'm really fortunate to come in at the time that I did. Things are going well.
I think it's an interesting take. You come in, but it's a different thing if you just come in cold, like Joe Nicole, who serves with you. He, I'm sure, had some idea of what he was getting into. He'd ran before, but you had served 8 years in the House, and you were very
actually
close.
Just four.
Just four. Well, you
Just
were
four.
close with Senator Arthur.
Yeah.
There were some reasons why you probably took to this. You couldn't have been as surprised about what you were dealing with as maybe somebody that just came and had never served in the legislature
Yeah,
before.
no, absolutely. And I'm really fortunate to have had that time in the House just to learn about the other side of the building, kind of see how things were done over there, how the sausage was made more or less. And probably most importantly, have 4 years on the House Budget Committee, where I feel like you really get the pulse of what's happening
There's
in state
no
government.
better place to learn state government than
Absolutely.
the House Budget Committee.
Yep.
There is no other entity that goes through every line of that budget. The Senate they don't have the time. I mean, but the House really does go through each line, and there's no better place to learn what the state government does in that committee.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really fortunate. I had those 4 years over there. Very grateful to have landed a spot on the Appropriations Committee, and obviously there's
You have
a
to put
lot
up
of
with that chairman, though. That sucks.
Well, I tell you what, I am.
Right before conference, he's an all right guy, right?
He, right now, I don't think anybody would want his job. I mean, I was looking back in the back right now as they were going through the
There's
House
like
and the Senate
33
positions.
people that would take his job. Like
And
that.
well, what I'm saying is, when it comes down to it, and you're trying to reconcile the differences between the House budget and the Senate budget, you had both the budget team and the appropriations team there in terms of all the nonpartisan staff last night, and they were working through it. And I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm so grateful we have Lincoln, who's advocating for the Senate position. I think it's been a very long time since a budget has passed out of the Senate Appropriations Committee unanimously, every single bill. And again, we had some robust conversations on the Senate floor, but at the end of the day, I think we came up with a budget that is fiscally sound, that really works for Missourians, and I was really proud to support every budget bill.
The House kind of does a political statement almost with their budget.
That's saying it nicely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think they have a view of the world, and it's like a professor at Mizzou could tell you a lot about a lot of topics.
Yeah.
But could they actually go do anything? Probably not. And I think that there's a difference between theory and reality. The House passed a theoretical budget, and the Senate passed an actual. Last year, they let the House actually pass their theoretical budget, and it resulted in the largest supplemental in state history.
And I really give Senator Huff a lot of credit on this one. It's like we're actually going to pass an operating budget. We want to make sure that we can pass an operating budget that's going to work from July 1 to June 30th and actually fund state government. And so I give him a lot of credit on that. And I simply do not understand the concept of the House starting with the budget and saying, let's cut $2 billion on the bottom line and let the Senate work with that money, right? Why would you not want your say in how state dollars are spent?
I can tell you why. I've watched this for a while. I think they like to tell people we cut the governor's budget. I think that it is a political point to say we've done this, and maybe I'm sure they all believe in it and all that. It just never actually happens. It was an interesting thing. You served in the House. I noticed the speaker did not take the conferees for the budget that the minority leader suggested.
Yeah.
They put Betsy on all of them.
Yep.
Or Representative Faughn, but they did. But I thought that was kind of cheap.
Yeah, and to me that was incredibly frustrating for the folks that spend a lot of time on those budgets. They actually understand the process. I mean, and I'll be honest, if you are on the budget committee, if you're not going through line by line with those departments, spending 12 hours in that budget hearing room, it is very hard to wrap your brain around what is happening in the state budget. To put
Well, I
somebody who
think some of
hasn't
those
served,
Democrats are there to do what they're told.
but to be on a conference committee where you really have to understand the ins and out of every budget. And again, House Bill 2 is one of the largest state budgets. Yeah, absolutely,
You walk
do.
in there and you're like, I'm going to vote with the Senate or the House. Right?
Nope. I would say that I've had a lot of conversations. I think you can talk to the folks that I serve with on the Appropriations Committee. There is so much work that goes on behind the scenes, and anybody who says otherwise is just wrong.
But by the time Wednesday night comes, and they're in conference, right? You're going to have two positions. There's a House position and a Senate position. You have to pick one. And I think the Democrats, the House Democrats that went around the minority leader to put on this conference committee, they're there to vote with the Republicans. Am I wrong? With the House. They're there to vote with the House Republicans.
Anybody who's going to be there to say that, hey, we should send public dollars to private entities that have zero accountability, I really question what that is all about. I really do. And
I want to talk about part of this budget. First of all, buddy Charlie Moore, thank you so much for this. I love this Pewter Stein. Very grateful. I very much appreciate it. Come down to Jeff City. I'll take you back in the speakeasy and I'll show you what we have it displayed. Also want to thank our friends in the great Northwest at United Fiber and the folks. If you're going to bring your family to town, where do you put them?
At the Marriott.
Yeah, Courtyard. I mean, don't be cheap, right? Care about your people. Put them somewhere nice. Go to the Courtyard by Marriott. Excuse me, I got a little Cinco de Mayo rust still on me.
Yeah, especially this time of year, sitting out on that patio. There's no better spot to look over at the Capitol.
Yes.
Stunning.
All right, so the appropriations process brought some fun last week, right, with the lieutenant governor.
Yeah.
So you all cut his budget by 1, but here's the nuance of this. I think that I've done a bunch of radio shows, and they all want to talk about this. So tell me if I'm wrong. So let's say hypothetically the lieutenant governor had 8 FTE spots in his office, and he only had 5 employees. He just takes the money allotted for the 8 and spreads that over the 5. That's very common. Am I wrong? That's kind of what they do.
Absolutely.
It's what Denny Hoskins spent a very many years complaining about.
Yep.
Which I see his point as an accountant or just as a business person. Why don't you just realistically show where the money's going?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think everybody would want that.
So why don't they just do it? Why don't you demand they do it?
Well, I think they're...
Like Denny suggested.
We should actually, perhaps reconsider some of these things next year as we're moving forward. If that's the conversation that we want to have to remove the flexibility on that PS line, then we should have those conversations.
Or should
the thing that is so frustrating to me, though, Scott, I gotta talk about a little bit about the lieutenant governor. Couple things that really grind my gears on this one. One is, if you want to try to come in and change the rules of the Senate and change the institution, then run for the Missouri Senate. That is the one spot where a senator gets to have a say in the rules. If you are not a Missouri senator, you do not get a say in the Senate rules and our operations. I am a little bit flabbergasted that a lieutenant governor who should have known the role of a lieutenant governor is a presiding officer.
Don't take long to read it.
Obviously, you serve on a lot of boards and commissions. Many of the things are ceremonial in nature. I give Governor Kehoe a lot of credit. Obviously, as Lieutenant Governor, he did a phenomenal job of really promoting Missouri and the Buy Missouri products, all of those things, right? So he found his lane. He really stuck into it. Tremendous credit on bringing the World Cup to the state of Missouri, right? He was part of all of those conversations. To have a lieutenant governor come in who's never been an elected official, who's never served in the Missouri legislature to try to tell us how to do our job, I find incredibly perplexing.
Well, let me pitch it different. I understand your conclusion, but David Wassinger is a very intelligent guy.
He's a very nice guy. He's a guy who, he came up to my area. We had coffee. We talked about things that we have in common and would like to work on together. I actually remember talking to him about the World Cup and really asking him to continue to champion that, be a champion for Missouri on this one. You have a lot of work.
It's a big deal.
Cut out until 2026. Work on that.
I think it might have went over better if 2 things. One, it's no secret he struggled with running the dice. It is not a smooth time when he's up there.
Yeah.
But he's gotten better. See, he said that everybody want to pile on him and said he was terrible at it. He had struggles early on. He's gotten better at that.
Yeah.
However, I do think with Parson, with Kehoe, they stayed in the dice. When you were out there filibustering at midnight, you'd come over to the Senate and watch Lauren filibuster at midnight.
Yep.
Most of the time, you'd see the lieutenant governor presiding. This lieutenant governor doesn't really show up that much, and he doesn't stay that long. Yesterday, he stayed 11 minutes. I think the senators, and I'm going to ask you, would you have taken that a little bit better if he would have mastered the rules himself, and if he would have actually showed up and ran the dais with any sincere commitment?
Yeah, absolutely, and actually be part of that, those nights of long conversations that we're having on the Senate floor and witness what this is all about, right? I think the rules of the Senate serve both parties well. If you look at what happened even last night, for example, there was dissent across the aisle, and there was dissent within the Republican
Well, there was
caucus,
y'all and Mike, right?
So, but what I'm saying is that it does serve everybody well. That is the whole point of it. If when I look at the Missouri House and let's say in total, the General Assembly introduced nearly 3,000 bills, right? You look at how many bills come flying out of the House with very little debate, sometimes, limited testimony in committee, all of those things. Then it lands on our desk. We haven't had conversations about the fiscal note. We haven't had conversations about unintended consequences. We haven't had the conversations that I think need to be had, and that's the purpose of the Missouri Senate. Again, I give credit to anybody who wants to step up and run for office, but I just think it's very important when you're deciding to run for an office and then you win the office to understand your role in that office.
So I'm with you. I think it's almost sad, but I also think there's part of this that makes me think David Wassinger got exactly what he wanted, because many, many people around the state were talking about David Wassinger.
Sure.
I'm not sure you and I'd be talking about Lieutenant Governor.
No,
right
probably
now
not.
if he
No.
hadn't done that.
Yeah, and
so
again,
I'm not sure he didn't get kind of what he wanted.
Yeah, and again, I want to say it again, I have a lot of respect for him in terms of being a very nice guy, working on building some personal relationships he has. He reached out to me, and we got coffee even before session started, right? What I want to go back to, though, is I think it's important, if he really wants to have conversations about the institution of the Senate, to make sure that you are there in that chair presiding during the times when things get tough, right?
It's fun to come in. Budget process.
It's fun to come.
There, right?
It's fun to come in and do the ceremonial thing, to recognize special guests, all of those things. But actually be there during debate. I think that's where you recognize and appreciate how the sausage is made, and that's important.
I'll ask you. During the debate he was talking about, where his budget was cut, was he in the chair?
No.
I mean, so you don't really know what happened. I mean, look, you've got news reports, and every, your major liberal papers love it when Republicans fight with Republicans. It's their favorite thing to cover, which it's interesting, and it's news. It's not a cheap shot when they're doing it, but they're going to cover that. I just thought he might have been a little more impactful if he'd actually been there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, anybody, right, if I have senators who've served in the chamber and they want to share some feedback as to perhaps some changes they would like to see in the Missouri Senate, right? I'm much more willing to be open to listening to those conversations. But it's the same thing when I, listen to somebody in the House. I mean, I remember sitting in the House and criticizing how the Senate was functioning because I didn't understand, right? Once you're there, I think you have a whole new found respect for the institution of the Senate. And again, these rules serve both parties well.
So let's talk about schools, something you will always like to talk about.
Yep.
The juicy thing, I think, tomorrow night is going to be how close do they get to the governor is with the House on this, on ending the foundation formula. Now, it seems a little tricky because last year there was a huge bill passed.
Yeah, 727.
Kind of what public schools got out of this was a bunch more money into the formula. I think they made the formula unsustainable last year.
I disagree with you. So, we have still about, $4 billion left in the Treasury right now, where the governor left money on the bottom line. Even, Senator Huff left some money on the bottom line. And I respect doing that for the reason that we do not know what's going to happen at the federal level, and we have to be ready to anticipate any, lack of federal funds that come our way. When we talk about the governor's recommendation, though, on this is specifically about not funding the state adequacy target, which, for those who aren't into the budget speak or into the education funding, right, this is simply the per pupil funding that schools that are in high performing areas pay on average per pupil, right? When we look at that across the state, we come up with this state adequacy target. That was introduced by the Republicans in 2005. It's something that at the time Governor Nixon said, I cannot support this because this will put less money into public education at the end of the day, right? This is simply moving the goalpost to look like we are, fully funding the formula when we truly aren't. And then it was, at the time, Senator Mike Kehoe that voted to override that veto. And so this is the same governor that's saying now, wait, just kidding, what we passed in 2005 actually wasn't correct. I think it is so frustrating when we talk about $300 million across our neighborhood schools. For my school district, Scott, that's about $9 million. When I break that down into how many teaching positions that is a real impact. When we look at rural school districts and they're having to make decisions on whether they can provide after-school programming or additional tutoring. I mean, those are real decisions that really hurt every single school across the state.
So I feel like you fell into a trap last year when public schools got promised all this money to go along with expanding ESAs. It felt like there was a little bit of a bait and switch there because the governor shows up his first year, nothing gets past Mike Kehoe. But that's the bigger thing. I think they fell into a trap. I think they made that formula unsustainable, and they initially cut it off the first year after passing that bill and said, okay, the formula's broken now. The same people that broke the formula, the same people now saying the formula's broken. I think it's really just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. There's a Blue Ribbon Commission. I've never seen one that wasn't totally worthless.
Yeah.
They're going to do, I guess it's going to take a year, and they're going to do a report at the end of next year. No one will care. I think Mike Kehoe knows exactly what he wants to do. I think Mike Kehoe's a winner, and he's going to do it. My concern would be, right now, that formula, it's very advantageous to rural small schools.
Yeah.
Now, I'm just a little pessimistic. There'll be a charter school in Advanced Missouri, right? So, is there not a way going forward to hold these rural schools harmless? You can pass every bill you want to pass. There's going to be no school choice in Donovan.
Yeah.
They got one school.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think as we look at some of these things, we need to have some conversations. Again, every time that there has been a rewriting of the formula, less money has gone into education. Today, I'm going to give you a very real example. When adjusted for inflation, we are funding education today at levels below 2008, and that's a fact. When we look at how we can incentivize rural school districts to think about sharing some resources, I mean, there's been some different proposals out
here we go with the consolidation.
But I really think that
we can
give some incentives. We can give some carrots out there versus the stick. You know, when I looked at, for example, the open enrollment proposal, I don't think it should be on the state to force that consolidation. I think there should be some real conversations.
Some of your suburban schools too big to succeed?
No. They really aren't. We continue to have destination schools.
Go to Rockwood and St. Louis and tell me they're not too big to succeed.
What I'm going to say is when you come look at what's happening in my district, I give President Pro Tem Cindy O'Loughlin a lot of credit. I give Governor Mike Kehoe. They have come to our district. They see the incredible work that's able to happen there. More cutting-edge, innovative stuff than you can even dream about. For example, in one of my high schools, we have a credit union. Students are going in there, running this credit union, putting in real money to take out loans with each other. I mean, it's amazing to start their own small businesses. I don't know what kids are doing today with these, like...
you got an application? I might...
Huh?
You got an application? I might need to...
No, seriously, I do. It's some really cool stuff that they're doing. And so what I'm saying is all of the conversations that education isn't evolving as quickly as it should, that it's not innovative, it's not responsive to the workforce, is a lot of BS. Come out to some of these schools that are doing things well.
Well, the kids at Knobnoster, the pilots at Whiteman, their knee was bumping a switch, which could cause a lot of problems if you're in a fight with some MiG or whatever. So they were going to have like $4 million per plane to rewire this whole console to make it where this thing didn't work. The kids at Knobnoster invented a 99-cent solution to the problem. I just wonder if some of those schools aren't just too big. Do you really get as good of can 500-kid class get as good of an education as a 100-kid class?
Okay, so I'm somebody who came from the 100-kid class, right? I went to
Smithville
schools, K-12. I had a great public education all the way through, right, from kindergarten all the way through my graduate school. I can say that I had a great education when I look at what was happening in the high school where I was teaching, North Kansas City High School. You know, we have that district, we have graduating classes to 400 to 500 kids. Incredible stuff is happening. And again, it comes down to the teachers in the classroom. It comes down to having school districts that are able to pay teachers well, that they're able to stay in there, that they have the autonomy to practice their craft, do all the innovative stuff that makes learning real for kids, that makes kids want to be there in the classroom. And I can't speak highly enough about what's happening in my area. I encourage every legislator, go spend a day. Don't go just for the ribbon cutting or to the graduation or to give a certificate. Go and spend a day, 8 hours with public teachers and see what they do every day. I mean, it's amazing, just the astronomical lifts that they have and really awesome stuff. And you leave at the end of the day with a smile on your face and knowing that our kids are in a good place.
I'm with you. I still think maybe they're too big. But, I mean, most of the problems that are complained about in the legislature, they don't come from Willow Springs High School. They come from Webster Groves and Rockwood and Francis Howell. The complaints I hear about really are not with Scott County Central. they're mostly with these big suburban school districts. Well, you get to listen to them all the time on the floor. I don't hear people complaining about New Madrid County Central. Do you?
No, and I don't. And again,
of course, we don't complain as much as city people, so that may be part of it too.
Yeah, I guess there is that, Scott.
So when this ends, so you're $300 million off?
Yeah, and I really obviously the whole conference process is some give and take and reconciling those differences.
Where's it end
I really
up?
hope, if I were to predict today, I think we fully fund the formula. I really do.
You get all 300
and
years
unfortunately, I think that could come with the trade-off of having to put some money into vouchers.
Yeah, they're definitely getting more money. But I see a ship going to a port. And I think in the 2027 legislative session, you're going to be filibustering for quite some time an education reform bill that will ultimately pass. And it will be school choice. And look, I kind of think the idea is time has come. I love the fact you're an advocate of this, and I love to talk with you about education. I always learn something, like you talk about the funding formula. There is you talk about innovation. When you talk to superintendents, most of them are very against change of any type. The only change they want is more money for the school. And I get it, but that culture, I think, has congealed. And I just think the dam's going to break. Do you have to kind of see this coming, right?
Well, I look at other states, for example, what happens. For example, what's going to happen if we're starting to put state revenue general revenue into vouchers is those private schools just raise their tuition. We can look at Arizona and see that, right? And all of a sudden it's like, great, I'm going to get rich off the state now. They are not improving educational outcomes, and that's what it all comes down to. If we want real change in the classroom, it starts by getting rid of the assessments that we have in the state. I'm serious that right now, every kid in those testing years, from elementary to high school and end of course exams, they are being forced to take these really awful, antiquated state assessments. So whether it's the MAP for the elementary kids, whether it's end of course exams, we have got to get rid of that. It's literally like an autopsy report at the end of the year. It stifles learning and joy in education across the state. If we want real change,
my kids are going through them right now.
It's awful.
Yeah, they don't care.
Scott, it's absolutely awful, and I can say that. Like, I hate to see my third grader all of a sudden like, Mom, I hate going to school right now because we have to do the MAP. I mean, all of that, there should be a real wake-up call for us. If we can get rid of those, and there's proposals out there, Education Freedom Act, Senate Bill 360, if we can start having some real conversations about changing how DESE is evaluating our schools. I think the biggest problem right now with DESE is that DESE has to be both the stick when the school is suffering and not doing well, right, not accredited, as well as the carrot and saying, hey, show us how great you all are doing. You can't be both the stick and the carrot. I think 360 kind of changes that. It allows schools to decide how to assess themselves. And again, it gets back to real world learning and being more authentic in what we're doing in the classroom. That's what everybody wants to see.
Here's my real world observation. Just my white trash, West Butler County hillbilly observation. Mike Kehoe ran on school choice. He was elected overwhelmingly, being very transparent about school choice. I think he's a winner. I think what Mike Kehoe digs into, he wins on. And I think he's going to get what he wants.
Well, we will see how this all goes down, right? It's gonna. This is the hill I will die on. I truly believe that. That's
why I love talking to you about it, because you're passionate.
You go into any of these charters.
It's not a game
Scott,
to you. It's serious.
I taught in a charter for 5 school. I really respect some of the work that has been done in charters, but I like to remind everybody, when did charters really start to expand in the state of Missouri and across the United States? It was during the Obama administration, right? This was the plan by the Democrats. They were schools run by Democrats. Still today, the vast majority of charters are run by Democrats. They have some of the most woke, progressive stuff happening within those walls of those schools. Go see what's happening there and tell me that that's what you want down in the Boot Hill.
I've been in one, and it's everything you just said.
Yep.
I also think that there's no way around. I just think that the school choice idea is an idea whose time has come. I don't think, like Brad Pollitt's bill for the open enrollment.
Yep.
I guess I just don't see the problem with that. You can opt into it. It's the most school district friendly piece of legislation as far as on something for school choice. I guess I just have a hard time seeing how if Blair Oaks has extra seats and kids that go to Jeff City want to take them, what's the problem with that?
Okay, so there are situations, and that's why we're really looking and having conversations still on this. I mean, this is still a bill that I am more than willing to sit down and have conversations, on open enrollment.
Big a deal, is it?
Obviously, we've put in some caps. Here's the deal. When you're not funding transportation, to me, that's a non-starter. I think it's really important if those that don't have the means that want to go, that the funding for the transportation is there.
Well, how can you run one bus all over the county to pick up a kid. I mean,
you know, there's
if you want to go to school there, you have to get your own ass there.
Okay, and again, the problem with that, Scott, is that again you would be discriminating on a kid based on their ability.
Well, you're not making the kid go to that school. You're offering them the chance to if they want to.
So it's saying that those who are wealthy or those that have means can get there, but you don't, right? And so you can't. Same thing with a kid that has a disability, an IEP, saying, okay, we can take your brother, but we can't take you. It's the, I mean, this is,
I think that's definitely going to happen, the second part.
This is, again, are we willing to have compromise on this? Absolutely. I think that's really important to me. A non-starter is being able to open enroll into charters.
I think this is the problem.
That was never part of the conversation.
This is the whole problem, though, is when you're doing something as small as allowing schools to decide if they have extra seats and want to take in more kids, and their kids want to come to that school. That is an innovation that seems so easy to me, and there's just very little give from that establishment. And I think you've got enough people. COVID, I met my corn man. I was right with you on this. Then I met the superintendent where I'm like, if you have money to pay this guy, if this clown, after he was fired and paid to never come back, if this guy you have money to put on the books, you've got problems. And I just think there is a real hesitance to any change. And I think Brad Pollitt's bill, who is not an enemy of education, who's a former superintendent and a damn good one and very revered in his community for the work he did.
Sure.
I think if you can't take him as an honest broker and that small change, I think the dam's going to break.
And that's why we were really interested from the very beginning, as when people said, "Hey, this is kind of the school reform bill this year." I started having conversations about what I would like to see in that bill, and we will continue to have those conversations. To me, if we want real change and real achievement in education, we want to see real growth and how well our students are doing and how well they are performing. Then it starts by getting rid of state assessments and actually unhandcuffing teachers right now.
Who is for the MAP test? I've heard nobody say a good word about that thing. Who's for it?
I don't know. I mean, again, it's well-intentioned people that looked at this and said, hey, this is what we need to do. We have to have this uniform test across the state. And I do not care who you talk to. Any classroom teacher right now says that they end up teaching to the test. They have to. Well, they are forced to.
But I go back to, I look at you as the leading advocate for public education in the state of Missouri.
Yep.
I think you took a very, very important role in the state from Senator Arthur, who I used to look at as the leader of public education in the state. That baton's been passed to you. When you say get rid of the MAP test, who says no? Who says we shouldn't do that? Who is the person? I don't know anybody that likes this test.
So again,
you're the leading advocate for public education.
Yeah.
When you say that we got to get rid of this, who stands up and says no?
Well, that was one of our big proposals, is that we'd like to see this as part of the open enrollment compromise. Unfortunately, I think some leadership have told the Senate sponsor not to have that conversation there on that bill. I'm hoping.
Cindy often doesn't like that test. I've heard her.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think a lot of people, again, I think if there's a will, there's a way on this one. I really believe that. I believe that on nearly every single piece of legislation that has before us.
Who filibusters it? Who says, no, the MAP test is a hell of an idea. Let's keep doing that. Who?
Unfortunately, if you listen to the first debate on this bill, there was folks that did that.
Who were they?
It was Curtis Trent.
Was for the MAP test.
He was.
Okay, now let me ask you a left-handed question. Are they for the MAP test because they're biding time to 27, they want to blow it all up, and the MAP test is so unpopular, it makes people agree with blowing it up?
Yeah, so I'm never going to make assumptions as to the reason why people are doing things the way they are doing them. But again, I give so much credit.
Smart dude. He's that smart.
I want to just go back, give a lot of credit to people who are doing the hard work every day in the classroom. People ask me, Scott, all the time, like, I don't know how you do that in Jefferson City. That has to be, so tough, and those early mornings and contentious hearings and those long nights. And I tell everybody, Scott, this is the easiest job I have ever had. I mean it. It's a different type of stress.
2 years from now, will you be sitting in that chair saying the same thing?
Being a classroom teacher, a high school teacher, teaching lots of different things, wearing all these different hats, that is one of the hardest jobs in the state.
I used to get paddled in school. Do you think you should still paddle kids?
I got paddled in school. I still remember. I'll never forget that.
Well, it didn't work on you or me, but maybe it worked.
Believe it or not, I was somebody that liked to talk a lot, Scott.
You? No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Well, Chatty Cathy there in elementary school.
Well, it wasn't like anything really mean, but yeah, they'd paddle me, and it was so funny. One time,
so ours was a ping pong paddle, so it wasn't like that.
Oh
huge.
No, this was like a fraternity made at the shop class. So we had a teacher, Mrs. Johnson, very nice lady, but older lady. we'd cut up in there. She'd paddles, and I would always wail and moan. That lady, she could have taken a paddle and hit me in the head, and I don't think it would have hurt. She was just a nice older lady. So when she'd spank me, I would like go, "Oh God, no more, no more." And then I'm bent over, and the history teacher was next door, and he happened to be walking by. And Mr. Jones was a man's man. I mean, he was a big old boy. And he he hit me to hurt me. And I'm telling you, I almost cried. I mean, it was like a shotgun went off in that hallway. All right, so prediction. You really think in 27...
Side note, I just want to say thank goodness we don't have corporal punishment in schools today. Moving on.
Oh, hell, it didn't hurt anything. The kids are fine. They're too soft, really. A lot of the problems is you need more bullying and more paddling in schools.
Oh, my goodness. Moving on.
I knew she'd take over if we did this long enough. All right, I know you got to go. You really don't think at 27 this whole thing's going to get radically updone? Will you still like this job by this time in 27?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it really is. Like I always have those moments.
What can you do to stop this ship from coming? I mean, you have the iceberg coming at public education right now. What could they do to avoid it?
You can see the train wreck that this is in every other state, Scott. I'm serious. Look at this. Educational outcomes are not improving. It's an absolute train wreck. And so I like for people to say all of this stuff, like, great. So, let's...
Do you think that argument will work? Because I'm pessimistic that it will.
Well, I am the eternal optimist on this one. I really am. I'm on the side of the vast majority of Missouri families, 90% plus, that have their kids in great neighborhood schools. It's interesting, right? When you talk to individuals about how is your school, incredible praise for what is happening in your neighborhood school, but you look at a system and you say, okay, but the system's broken. The system is wrong. Get on the ground. It all goes back to ground level, what is actually happening in those classrooms. I'm not saying there's school board members here and there, or there's a superintendent here and there that doesn't need to be there. I think that's in any job across the state, right? But get in there, get into the classroom and the actual work that's happening.
And paid to never apply again.
Believe me, I have stories I can share you about a superintendent that was at my charter school that I made sure left sooner than later, right?
Some of these people are so bad at their job that I don't think you can defend them. I just don't. I don't know how you
there's
would.
some again.
There's bad talk show hosts, yeah. But last question, we have Flat Doug here.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Prop A.
Look at Flat Doug there. He is...
It's so funny. You can see that dude at 2 a.m. or 6 a.m.
He looks exactly the same.
And his tie is perfect, and his hair is perfect. Really, Flat Doug's a good rep. The first night we had Flat Doug, we took him to Speakeasy, and we had a great time. And if he would have shown up, he would have looked just like that.
I was going to say, sharp looking. I mean, he really does. Looks just as sharp as he does in person.
Always looks sharp 24/7. It's really like a vampire. All right, Prop A. Last question. What's going to happen there? You going to get a deal?
Yeah, absolutely. My faith is in Dougie on this one. I really do. I was out there this weekend. I at one of the rallies. We're 90% of the way there. I think on any law.
Feels like you are, right?
On any law that is passed, whether by the General Assembly, whether by initiative petition, there's always work. There's tweaking that needs to go on. I think we said from the beginning, we certainly saw some areas on implementation where we could clarify the law without at the same time keeping the spirit of Prop A. And I think that's what we want to see. The spirit of Prop A, what voters were asking for, and if we need some clarifying language, let's do it. So I think we're going to get there. I really do. I give so much credit for the senators that have been in those negotiations. All of us want to see the Senate continue to function, right? The last thing anybody wants to see is the upheaval from previous years. I think it serves Missouri well when we have a functioning Missouri Senate, and I hope we could keep it that way.
I think it's a terrible idea when the Federal Society from the right comes in and treats Missourians like dirt.
Yep.
I think it's bad when the Prop A funders come in from Washington. I don't think they care about this state. I think all those Washingtons want to do is color Missouri in on their little map.
Yeah.
And it does feel like this is way, way burdensome. But fair enough, the folks did vote for it. I always think it's dumb when they say, oh, the folks don't read these ballot measures. But by God, they read their state representative line. They don't
I tell you what, talking to those folks this weekend at the rallies, I was amazed at how much people knew about the law, about what was passed. Funny thing is, right, I always say, you're talking about, what happens in 27 if something blows up. What's going to happen if they undo Prop A? You know what's going to happen? It's going to be permanently embedded in our state constitution. This is something that's overwhelmingly popular.
Invaded the hook, and once they change this in statute, whatever deal is agreed to, or if there is one, I think they just go and put it in the Constitution and they reeled it in and say, we tried to do this and the Republicans overrode the will of the people. I think the Republicans are walking into a trap.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But, I mean, and it's, I do
Well, as I look at Flat Doug, my confidence is with Dougie there. I think he's going to get this one across the finish line. I really do. I think it's in...
it does feel that way, right?
Yeah, that's what this process is all about. So Scott, can I share something?
If not, the lieutenant governor will come in and do it, right?
Yep.
He'll fix it.
So I've been looking at this wall for a while. I tune in when I can. My husband always watches this, which I find perplexing.
Right, thank you very much. Very grateful.
But he does, and he's like, and I remember him saying, why don't you have your sign up there? And I said, gosh, seems like there's plenty of room. So I brought you something today. Here's
I love this
a
sign.
Maggie for
Thank
Mo.
you so much. I am very grateful.
Nobody, and still, year 5 in the General Assembly, still few very people know how to say the last name, Nuremberg.
I think I've been hitting
so,
Nuremberg?
You say Nuremberg, yeah, but I'm just saying, so we went big with the Maggie for Mo, that's all that matters. And
I
then
saw
a little
these up in the Northland last fall.
We happen to have quite a few up there, so it worked out.
Get the Royals up there?
We are. I really am. I'm super confident about this.
It kind of does feel like the
You've
right
been
place.
there in North Kansas City. It's an amazing spot.
Thank you so much, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
To me, it's the most logical place. If you just go by and I love a downtown ballpark as much as anybody else, and that's where ideally it'd be great. I just don't see a place downtown Kansas City to put one.
Yeah, and I think part of what everybody's really been asking for with this is making sure that we really have a family-friendly entertainment district that surrounds it, a spot where you can walk out of the stadium and grab a bite to eat with your family. When we look at North Kansas City, those who haven't been there say, this is like a hidden gem. I had no idea this area is here. You have Chapel Sports Museum, which a lot of people know of. Mm-hmm. You have Cinder Block. You have Chicken and Pickle. You have all of these areas already around it that I love to frequent with my family.
So many acres
about
70, right?
About 70 acres. And so you look at those depictions of what is possible there. I'm very excited about the prospects of getting here. And can I tell you something that's really cool?
Where else in the Midwest do you have 70 or 100 acres of developable land with
a prime real estate?
Yeah.
Prime real estate that's very accessible from every direction, right? When we look at this site, it is essentially the geographical center of the Kansas City metropolitan population. I am so grateful for Presiding Commissioner Jerry Nolte. He came here. We were working on bills as soon as I got elected to the Missouri Senate. That is no easy thing, and it's all about what is good for our region, what's good for our state.
You're both pros. You're both class A's.
And they came forward, the county commissioners came forward with a Clay County Sports Authority proposal.
That's moving, right? That's moving.
Absolutely. It's over there. We expect it to be up on the House floor this week, Senate Bill 80. And I give everybody credit where credit is due on this, from the speaker to the president pro tem to the governor. Everybody is very interested in doing everything that we can to make sure that we can get these teams
the
here in the state.
trophy from the 10-26-85 terror attack and apologize?
Scott, do you know what? It's actually time to go. Got to get to the Senate.
We got a couple interns in here.
Yeah, we got Katie and Alana, my interns. We've had incredible, I'm so grateful for my office staff, but really give our interns so much credit.
You get your Truman State pipeline.
That's how it's done,
That's
Scott.
All,
little by little, we're going to take over the Missouri
believer.
Capitol. A lot of great people have come from there, obviously, that have served Missouri very well. But
you don't want to say Schmidt, but Schmidt, right?
Scott Sifton.
Sifton's light up.
No, but I'm really grateful for them. So it's been fun having interns with me. I started as an intern in the Missouri Senate.
What a great story that is.
So it's full circle moment for me, for sure.
Always surprises me. There's not a lot of people that do those internships and actually run for office. It is. I guess I just would have thought there's a lot of them that come back as lobbyists, association directors.
Yeah, staff.
But there's not a lot that actually run for office and come back that way. So congratulations. I want to thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your time. I know we took longer than, but I love talking schools with you because I always learn something I didn't know, and you never get off message, which is wonderful. It's a really great thing to watch.
You try, though. You try to rattle me, Scott, and I tell you what, on this one, I am locked in.
I understand. I just think my observation, you did not tell me anything that would make me change where I think this thing's going.
Yeah. Well,
maybe you having comfortable shoes 2 years from
determined.
now. Yes, that's a fact.
Yeah.
We'll have to have a state of knowledge bet on 2 years from now.
Yeah. Okay.
Who's right about this?
Thank
you guys. I think we have the mayor of St. Louis coming in tomorrow. Kara Spencer should be here with us. I don't know what time yet. Watch the social medias. Kelton will have it up. Thank you guys for watching. Senator, thank you so much. And thank you for this.
For your Maggie for Mo sign.
Yes. By the time the mayor comes in, we'll have this put. We have to bump somebody.
Well, I could.
Well,
Have some names I'd like to see taken down. If you'd like, open to suggestions.
Crystal Quays, you're talking about?
No. Anyway, we can do some rearranging.
We can put over Dane's. I mean, although Dane, we had a great Cinco de Mayo in here yesterday.
Oh my goodness.
You want to wear one of our wrestler masks?
Do they stink?
It's possible. Oh, this is great. You didn't think you'd get to see this today. Outstanding. Okay, we're not going to top that, so we're going to sign off here from El Maggie Nernberno and Scott Faughn. We'll see you tomorrow with the Mayor of St. Louis here on TWMP Daily. Aha! Arriba!